6 students arrived in Shizhou prepared to take on a challenge. 5 months earlier, they filled out an application that would partially determine whether they would get to go on an amazing trip. The accepted had chosen a topic of high interest. The topic I chose was domesticated plants and animals, which later developed into in-house and backyard gardening. In doing, I had produced a thesis statement to guide my final product. A question that I asked myself multiple times during the trip was, why would a resident of Shizhou choose to have a backyard garden? There are 3 points that guided my thought process. Looking at the information that I gathered, I found enough to support the growing plants and eating them are good for the human body because the people of Shizhou grow their own plants without using any fertilizers or pesticides. This allowed the plants to be organic and natural without any artificial additives. As I watched the people of Shizhou talk about their plants and even offer handfuls of it, I noticed that the plants in the ground look extremely healthy. Some of them showed signs that bugs had eaten them, which supports the claim of all the plants being natural. They grew only what was in season, which maintains the freshness of everything that they had planted. And they ate only what was ripe. Eating these seasonal plants allowed a balance of nutrition throughout the year. Another point is the environmental benefits. All of the gardens I visited had planted their plants straight into the ground, not in pots or vases. Walking through some of them, I noticed that there was no fertilizer visible on the ground, nor was there the smell of pesticides. It was just simply the plant, the sun, and some water. I asked the locals how they tended to their plants. I was expecting there to be a complex routine on how plants were tended to. Instead, all I received was a simple one-sentence answer. Usually it was just, oh, I water them sometimes. That was it. No fertilizers, no pesticides at all. I had a conversation with Mr. Du, a resident here at Shizhou who has and tends to his own backyard garden. When the question related to the fields came up, he passionately told us about how the fields cannot sustain life for very long anymore, and how the land is going to die if the use of fertilizers and pesticides continue. Then he continued to tell me that he plants his own plants in his backyard because he knows what's going into his food, and he knows it is safe to eat and it's good for the environment. He said to me that he never buys food from outside sources unless he has to, because he does not trust the food from fields or other places. The last but not least is self-satisfaction. When talking to many people, I asked them whether or not they liked what they were doing, and I always got the same answer. It was, if I didn't, why would I be doing it? I thought about this a lot when having conversations with these people. Even though the top 2 reasons why residents of Shizhou might want to have a backyard garden have often crossed the minds of the ones planting. The main reason as to why people have backyard gardens is because it gives them a sense of pride. It fills them with happiness, and they just overall enjoy planting and raising things. After a season, the plants are ready to harvest. Those who grew the plants feel a sense of satisfaction knowing that they have raised a healthy plant for themselves. When their own plants are eaten, they feel a sense of safety knowing they grew it themselves and there were no pesticides or fertilizers involved. Watching something grow to the day until it's ready to harvest gives a feeling that cannot be found doing anything else. It gives one the sense of pride in the way that they raised something and they're able to call that something their own. Overall, the residents of Shizhou garden simply because they find it to be enjoyable and satisfactory. In conclusion, the 3 main points as to why the residents of Shizhou garden in their own backyard are because the plants they grow are healthier for their bodies, it's good for the environment, and it brings personal satisfaction. Originally, the topic I had chosen was domesticated plants and animals, but as I gathered my information, I realized that most of it revolved around in-house plants and animals. I organized what I gathered and found that there was not much about animals, so I took that part out. What I ended up with was in-house and backyard gardening. I learned a lot this trip about my topic and about the village and about the people around me. And most of all, a lot about myself too.